Hello YouTube world, my name is Nicholas Montez, and you're watching my YouTube channel, Nicholas Montez. So today, we will be doing my first ever Pixar tier list. Actually, my second tier list I've actually ever done on my channel. In honor of Soul coming out on Disney Plus, this past weekend. But before we start the tier list, let's get this mask out of the way. I don't care if I go to jail. I'm going to take off my mask because I want to breathe. And plus, this is a YouTube video, so masks, you don't need to wear a mask unless you're in unless you're videotaping yourself in a store. So, yeah. But now, let's get into the tier list. Alright, so if you've seen one of my tier lists before, well, actually, this is my second one doing it. So if you remember my last tier list that I did with the MCU movies back in June, you know that I actually added something now. So I have the top tier is actually, instead of S tier, I called it an A+ tier. Because I just don't really think that the S tier is a meaningful way for it. So I decided to call it an A+ tier. And then, of course, you have A, B, C, D, F, and then Z tier instead of just a normal F tier. I feel like they just need, different things. So let's get started. So we're going to, as you know, all these films are in chronological order, in order of release. So that's basically how I'm doing it. So with that said, we're going to get started. And we're going to start off with Toy Story. Now, this is a film I absolutely love. Now, as you guys know, in my top 5 favorite November movies, you know those lists are basically about me giving love to films that are released in those months. And I give Toy Story the love because, first off, I would say that one of the things that this film does best is the nostalgic purposes. Sorry, my computer glitched for some reason. This movie has very good nostalgia. Likewise, the characters are just so memorable and so funny and so likable. The music is so good, as well as the soundtrack. A lot of people just remember A Friend in Me, but there's more than that. Like, strange things are happening to me. No more sailing, no more. No sailing, no more. So this movie just captures a lot of great stuff. And even as it is the first computer animated film of all time, the visuals still hold up today. Except I would say that there are Pixar movies that do a better job of it. Like, they have better animation than this one. So for me, this is actually gonna go an A+ tier. I love Toy Story, so it's an A+ tier movie. Next up we have A Bug's Life. So this is kind of an easy one to talk about because I'm not crazy for it, and I don't hate it either. Because I know there are some people that actually don't like it very much. But for me, with the stories that they told in this movie, I actually connected with. I liked it. I especially liked the interactions between Flick and Dot. They were really cool. It was really cute and funny. Especially the one where it's like, I know it's a rock! People probably not know that's... Other people might not think that's funny, but I think it has some nice humor, except it's not all around funny, but it finds its own way to be funny and a good comedic elements. Likewise, I thought the story in this movie was very creative. I don't think it's like the best of Pixar. I don't think it's like the one that does anything best. It's just a good time. So for me, I'm going to put this in B tier. There we go. Alright, next up we have Toy Story 2. Now, if I would have to put this somewhere, I would put this in the A+ tier. But I'm actually going to put it in the other great tier, A tier. And even though I'm putting it in my tier that I want it to be, I'm still going to talk about it. So, if I would put it in the A plus tier because I love rewatching this movie. This movie is probably one of the most rewatchable Pixar movies I've ever seen. It's really enjoyable, but I would say that for what happens in the movie, for how much stuff happens in the movie, that kind of puts it down on A plus tier because it doesn't feel fresh, and it just feels like a lot of stuff is going on, which it is. So for me, it doesn't feel as fresh as the first one. It doesn't feel like the storytelling is perfect. Um, and to be honest, even though Toy Story was sort of simple, even Toy Story doesn't even feel like fresh. Well, I mean, it sort of does, but at the same time, it doesn't. If you know what I mean, it doesn't feel like the storytelling. It feels so right. It doesn't feel like that to me. But overall, I love Toy Story 2. I mean, it has memorable characters. It uh, it does a good job with the new arcs that they did with like Jesse and with like the toys and stuff. And I like the adventures we go on with Buzz and the gang. Um, and I like the little Star Wars references, even though I've never seen all the movies of Star Wars. Stinky Pete is really good, especially how I found out that the Kelsey Grammer, the guy that plays him, I can't believe he actually plays Beast in X-Men The Last Stand. That's actually something I never expected. But yeah, Toy Story 2 was a great movie. Next up, we have Monsters, Inc. And I would say this is actually one of the Pixar movies where I actually feel like the storytelling is there. But at the same time, it feels like a perfect movie, but it's not. There's a couple, I just don't feel like it's that perfect. It's perfect. Because for A plus movies, even though they don't feel perfect, they sort of are. They have that style where they're good and they're great. Monsters Inc. is a great movie. I would consider it to be one of the best movies of Pixar that they've ever made. So for me, I would consider Monsters Inc. an A tier movie. But here's the thing about it. So I love the relationship between Mike and Sully. I thought they were very funny together. And introducing Boo, this very cute little monster. Um, it was a very nice thing that they did for a Pixar film. As Monsters Inc. was the fourth Pixar movie. So honestly, I really enjoy Monsters Inc. Um, it's just it doesn't feel as perfect as Toy Story. And even Toy Story doesn't feel perfect. That's why, but I love it because it's just a classic movie. But Monsters Inc. doesn't really do that. It's a great film that is just loved. Loved. There's just something about it that's just not perfect enough. It's just not great enough. That's kind of why it does it. I feel like it's more enjoyable than to what it's going for with like the arcs and the characters and stuff. So I feel like it's a little bit more enjoyable than it is actually a great film. But it's great for being enjoyable. So that's what I would give it. And then we come to Finding Nemo. If I tell you I love Finding Nemo, you know I love Finding Nemo. Like, this film literally feels so perfect. Well, they're talking about first off, the characters are just so good. You have Marlin, Dory, Nemo, the sharks. Hang on, I need a drink of water. Anyways, the animation in here is just one of the best films that they had with this animation style. The water looks so good and it looks so real. Um, but like the characters are so good with Dory and Marlin and Nemo. The way we get to explore them now, I would consider Dory being the better main character than Nemo because we kind of never really seen Nemo in this movie because it's really all about Marlin and Dory trying to save Nemo from the dentist. But Other than that, and also the music. Now, there's not like songs in this movie like Toy Story. There's not like a soundtrack in this movie like Toy Story or Monsters Inc. or Bugs Life, but there's the music in this movie. I absolutely love it. Like it's kind of like one of. Oh, sorry, if you're wondering what this is just. I don't know what that is. Anyways, Toy Story. So Finding Nemo, like the music just feels so calming and just, ugh, it's like when you listen to it, it's so good. And like even and other than that music, like there's like some very funny moments. You have like very character arcs. This is like one of those Pixar movies that not only does it feel perfect, but it feels like it does too much, that you don't really feel overwhelmed. You feel satisfied at the end, and I love that. So for me, Finding Nemo is actually gonna go in the A plus tier. One more thing before we actually continue the list is that if you think I like finding Toy Story more than Finding Nemo and Toy Story 2 more than Monsters Inc., that's not true. I will change up the tier list. I will put them in the right order once I finish this whole list. So next up we have The Incredibles. Now a lot of people are going to be probably being in the comments or in their minds like as they're watching this, being like, please put in A plus tier. Please put in the A plus tier. Please you might have some hopefully you have some positive things to say about it because this is one of the best superhero movies of all time. And I love superheroes. Well, I don't love every superhero movie. Alright, there's superhero movies that have sucked, like Thor the Dark World. And X-Men Origins Wolverine or The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but they don't really suck. I give them D-tier films, D-tier lists, D scores. But The Incredibles, I'm not the biggest fan of. Now, it's not going like super low on this tier. No, not many movies will be going on the lower tiers. But this movie does something. Now, I like the way the action is handled. And I like the stuff with the family. But there was just something about it that just didn't feel as original. Like, sure, it feels original. It's one of those movies where it doesn't explain what this world is. Which is something I kind of want because it's a superhero film, and superhero films explain the story. But you just get introduced into this world, and it's fun, it's funny. But I wish they could just explain it, and I think Syndrome doesn't really work as a villain. Like most people, he's just a copy. He's just a copy version. He's just another annoying version that wants to be the sidekick of his famous superhero, but then turns evil. And when you think of those other villains, they're very dark and brooding. This one, he's not dark and brooding. He's just like, when you think of him, he's just by himself plotting evil plans. Like, he's not great. So, I did like Samuel L. Jackson as Frozone. That was a good cameo that they did. But overall, it's not my favorite Pixar movie. It is enjoyable to watch, though, so I'm going to put it in the B tier. Please don't hate me for this. I'm sorry I'm sorry if I ruined your childhood or anything like that. I'm sorry. Next up, we have Cars. If you can't see that down there. Cars right there. So Cars. I've actually been reviewing some of the Cars movies this past week. Well, the past weeks leading up to Soul. And this movie, I actually have some positive things to say about it. Now, is it the best of Pixar? No. There's all the movies that I talked about before, they're all better than Cars. Definitely better. But I felt like that the way we got to explore this story was, it was good. I liked the way they did it. And I thought that one of the best parts about the film was the characters. I thought the characters were really likable, especially Tomater with the And the cast, Owen Wilson as Lightning McQueen, Bonnie Hunt as Sally, which she's not only appeared in a lot of Pixar movies, but she's appeared in a lot of Disney movies too. But I just kind of like the way we kind of explore this story, and even the visuals. The visuals are absolutely stunning. All the Cars movies have amazing visuals, in case you guys did not know. Um, I don't know what else that there is to say. I feel like the story is a little. It kind of takes a story that we've seen before, but kind of takes it in a new direction. And also, as we are exploring this sort of Cars world, there are some stuff that works that they kind of make cameos of. Like they make like the end credit scene. This is spoilers for the film. They kind of make like this. They kind of make this like end credit scene where they make them watching past Pixar films. Like they make a scene where they're watching the first Toy Story, and instead of Woody saying "You are a toy," he's like "You are a toy car." Like that scene is very funny. I really like that scene. And then they have like a Bug's Life, I believe Monsters Inc. Um, so this movie is good. It's not great. It definitely is forgettable, I will say. But and it's similar to a story we've seen before, but it's not best. I will say one of the problems that I probably will have with the movie is I just don't understand the world of Cars. I just don't understand the world of Cars, and I'm not really the biggest racing fan when it comes to movies like this. But when the racing happens, I'm in for it. So that's what I think about Cars. So let's put this. I'm gonna put this in the C tier, and we're gonna continue from there. Next up, we have Ratatouille. Now, Ratatouille is one of those movies where, because they took this idea about this rat that's controlling this man so he could cook food and pursue his dream of cooking. And I think that is a very weird concept, but it works so well. And this is kind of one of those movies where one of the things that makes the movie work even more is the idea. The idea works very well. Likewise, it's so weird. It's a weird concept that makes, and also for this weird concept, it makes it kind of funny. And it might sound like I'm praising this. It might sound like it's a perfect movie, and it's probably gonna be in this tier. It's not. And like the way we get to explore, and we like the way we get to explore like cooking, I think is very interesting. And we get to and the way we explore the characters, I thought it was interesting as well. So I thought it was a very great movie, but it's not perfect. I don't think it's as rewatchable as the movies in the 8+ tier. But I love Ratatouille, so for me, it is gonna go in the 8+ tier. And one more thing before we get to Wally, is every time I have to watch this movie, every time I watch this movie, I have to eat a snack. That's just the thing I want to say. Next up, we have Wally, and this is gonna get a little bit of a controversial, but I'm not the biggest fan of Wally. Now I can enjoy it for from the first scene to the ending scene. I like the ending scene because it feels kind of satisfying. But I like the first scene. I like the first scene because it's I like the first scene because it's fun to see Wally collect trash, put it in himself, and make it into like a trash cube, which is really cute. But I liked the ideas we get to explore, where we basically get to explore life, and there's really two ideas that this film explores that I thought was really cool, and that explores life as well as saving the planet, and I really like that. But when we get to explore it, it's not as interesting to me. And that's kind of why I don't really like it as much as everybody else. So for me, I'm sorry, all you Wally fans, but For me, I'm actually going to put it in the B tier. So that's where it's going. Next up, we have Up. Now, I will say, this is probably the most emotional Pixar movie that I've ever watched. And probably for you, too. But this movie is just heartbreaking, man. You have, like, the first, like, couple of minutes, like, the first minutes of the movie is just so emotional as these two people are just going through this life that they loved. And as we go through the adventure, it's funny and it brings back those emotional stakes from the beginning, and it's emotional. It's really good. I will say this: the rest of the movie doesn't live up to those first minutes of Up, and I don't really understand the villain plot line, Charles. I don't really understand the villain of Charles Munns. Other than that, it's a great movie, and it's not super high, but it's gonna go in the A tier. Next up, we have Toy Story 3. Now, I've always loved Toy Story 3 when I first saw it, and I thought one of the things that made this film work so well was the movie. It explored the themes about, growing up and moving on with your lives of your childhood. And I thought that those ideas worked. And I don't know. And, like, the characters were, other than that, it's funny. It's likable. The characters are likable. And it was very emotional to see Andy give his toys away and play with his toys for the last time. And, yeah. And you never thought a movie like this could work. You never really thought a movie like this could work. And it was just a great ending to the trilogy. And Lotso was probably one of the best Pixar villains, as well as one of the best Toy Story villains of all time, because you hate him. And that's how you know you love him as a Pixar villain. So for me, this is just an A+ tier movie. I instantly love Toy Story 3, so it's going really high. Next up, we have Cars 2. And if you saw my review for it, you know that I was actually a much bigger fan of it than I was with most people. I know a bunch of you hate this movie, and it's one of your absolute least favorites. I'm not the biggest hater for it. I'm not saying it's great, because it's not. I'm not even going to say that the theme, the thing that they took on, where they're bringing spies into the mix, is great, because I thought that idea was going to be very stupid. But for me, this idea worked. It made it work in ways that I liked. So for me, Cars 2, like, the action, the visuals are great. The action, I thought, worked pretty nicely, especially with the final battle, where it kind of put a grin on my face. And to be honest, I enjoyed it more than most people. So for me, Cars 2 is actually a C movie. But yeah. Next up, we have Brave. And this one is a little bit, I have mixed feelings for, because on one hand, I have some nostalgia for this movie, because I used to watch this a lot growing up in life. But when you look at the film as a whole, it's not great. The story is not the best. It tries to be both an epic, it's like a movie that you question. Like, is it trying to be this epic story about, like these things? Like, it tries to be about this epic story about kingdoms being torn apart, and like, it doesn't work. Now, there are a couple of moments I do like, especially with the animation and the music, which I think both of those stuff works. But as for me, it's gonna go in the D tier. I'm sorry, if you love this movie, if you actually want me to put it in I'm not gonna put it in the F tier. I like it, though. Then we have Monsters University. Now, you've heard how much I love Monsters Inc. and how much I loved it. And a lot of people say that they were disappointed with this movie. I don't really think that. I actually like it a lot. Now, is it at the same level of Monsters Inc? No. It's definitely not as good as Monsters Inc. But it's good in a way that I actually liked. Like, the Uzma Campa group is very fun. And I don't know, I enjoy the movie. I kind of like the themes we go on and the stuff we explore with the characters. The stuff we explore with the origins of Mike and Sully. So for me, I enjoyed that. So for me, Monsters University, and as we get to explore the theme about it's okay to fail, I actually like that message. I never really knew what the theme of the message was after they exploded and they got kicked out of Monsters University. But so overall, it's a B tier film, and yeah. Next up, we have Inside Out. Now, this is the movie that actually is preparing for this list, and this was a movie that I absolutely loved. It was just great, great Pixar. First off, it's probably the most emotional Pixar movie. I almost cried in this movie. No lie, no joke. The animated film I actually cried in was The Prince of Egypt and Finding Nemo. But Finding Nemo, I've seen it many times, and I cried once. Maybe it's because I was emotional, and I kind of saw the emotion in it. But Inside Out, I almost cried. I did not cry fully. I did not cry in this movie. So for me, it's just so emotional. Plus, it's funny. It basically makes you feel all the emotions, and I love that. I love when a movie does that. Likewise, the characters are just so good. The way it does things. So for me, this is just an amazing movie. So it's going in A plus tier. Next up, we have The Good Dinosaur. Now, The Good Dinosaur is a lot like Brave, because I used to watch this a lot when I was younger, when I was very young, and I used to love it. I used to love rewatching, and I to this day I still love rewatching it, but it's not as good of a film. I think that Arlo, when he keeps getting scared, is just kind of annoying when he keeps screaming. And, like, there's this scene where I think they're doing, like, animal drugs, and that's not really something you would see in a movie. Like, they start laughing, and they see weird things. It's weird, literally weird. But I will have some positive things to say about it, is that the animation is pretty good, and especially when there's water. I thought it looked really real. And like the rocks looked real too. But overall, the dinosaur is a good. It's not great, but it's good enough. So I'm gonna give it the same score of Brave. The same tier list as Brave. And then we have Finding Dory, which you heard me rave about the first Finding Nemo and how much I loved it. And as much as I was excited for this one, it was a little bit disappointing when I rewatched it a couple times. But what makes this movie so good is you have Dory as the main character, and the plot lines I thought worked. Like there's every story beat you understand. Granted, I just don't think it feels as original as the first Finding Nemo, but it works. It has some emotional stuff, and it's funny. And it's kind of like you feel, and it's like, as Dory forgets, it's like, are you supposed to laugh at this, or are you supposed to be sad, or is this a sad moment? And to be honest, it kind of works. It kind of works. So for me, it's another B tier film. And now we come to Cars 3. And I'm very excited to put this movie in this tier list because this was one of the movies that I've been desperately wanting to put on the list. Because when I used to do this by myself, And I hate putting, I hated putting movies. I hated skipping movies when I did tier lists. It was really annoying. And I'm glad I don't have to skip Cars 3 anymore because it's fine. I finally get to put it on the tier list. But, I thought that it has, I know a lot of people say that it has a sort of a Rocky vibe to it. I can see similarities to it, but I wouldn't consider it to be a full-on Rocky thing. So, that's kind of one of the things. Of course, like the first two Cars movies, the animation and the visuals are beautiful. They look so real. Um, and the new character of Cruz Ramirez, I thought was good. So, this is a pretty good film. There are some things. There are some things I look back on now, and I will say this: it doesn't really work. Like when Cruz gets her moment to shine as a racer, it works because Lightning McQueen gives it up and she actually gets her own thing. But I don't like when main characters decide to do that. And we'll get into some other movies that sort of do that thing. But I'm gonna put Cars 3 in the C tier. So it's a good movie. And then we have Coco, one of the best Pixar movies. And this is actually one of those films, like great animation. Love the story. I love the characters, especially Hector, how we get to explore his arc within the film. Reason I'm not gonna put it in the A plus tier because I feel like with a movie like this, it feels too perfect, and I think it has to do with the plot twists into it. When you watch it now, it feels so obvious when you watch it now. So, yeah. So, for that reason, I'm going to put Coco in the A tier. And then we have Incredibles 2, which you heard my opinions about the first Incredibles and how much I didn't really like it as much as everybody else, but I enjoyed it. And I thought it was a good movie. Well, not actually a good movie. It was actually a great movie. I actually thought this was I thought this was better than the original. And to be honest, I thought that everything that they did in this movie, except the screen flavor, except the screen flavor was a little bit was better than the ones than Syndrome, but everything in this movie, whether you're talking about the comedy, the action, especially how they do the spy elements into the movie, they really do a lot of great stuff that lives up to the original as well as do better than the original. So for me, I'm going to give this an A. It's not the all-time best Pixar movie, but it is a great film. And then we have Toy Story 4. Now, if you saw my Christmas presents video, I told you that I was going to be talking about my thoughts on it, and I'm not the biggest fan of this movie. Much like Wally, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. And I think that has to do with how much stuff is going on. It's a lot like Toy Story 2 in a way, where they do so much stuff, and I don't like how they did too much stuff. Even though it was compatible, and it made sense in the end, it just didn't work for me. I wanted them to stick with a simple story, even though I can't really think of how they could fix it. But overall, this was a good movie, and likewise, this was actually one of the movies I was going to talk about, of how they made choices, of the choices that they made, of how Woody did not go back. He stayed with Bo Peep, and he left the gang. I did not like that, even though it was a satisfying thing for the Toy Story franchise. So for me, this is actually going to go in B tier. I enjoy the characters, especially the new casting with Keanu Reeves, the returning of Bo Peep, and Keegan-Michael Key, and the guy that directed Get Out, I think. So this is a good movie, just not my favorite Toy Story film. And then we have Onward. For me, this was a very good movie. I really enjoyed the brother aspects, the relationship between Barley and Ian, I thought worked really nicely, and I thought the relationship was great. It feels like that really brother relationship that you would see in a movie like this. And Chris Pratt and Tom Holland did really good as the roles. So for me, I would give this a B. There's not really much to talk about Onward. I will talk more about it when I do my live stream on, I believe, next Thursday. I believe, yeah, next Thursday, celebrating 2020. And now we have Soul. Now, if you saw my review, you probably know where it's gonna go. But I love the animation. I love the characters. I love the music, especially the jazz music. I like how we got to explore the jazz transition into the film. And overall, it was just a good movie. The there are some things I would have probably taken out, not really taken out. There's probably things I don't like about the movie is that it feels too fast. And that in the beginning it doesn't really feel that dark, except when you see that it doesn't feel as dark when you think about it. And there were just some confusing things that I didn't really like before. But overall, this is a great movie. Well, not a great movie. It's good. So I would give it a B tier. But we're not done yet. We're going to be ranking these films. So we're going to start off with a D tier. And for me, The Good Dinosaur will be above Brave, as Brave is 22, as Brave is 23, and The Good Dinosaur is 22. And then Cars 2 and Cars 2 will stay where they are while I move Cars 3 in front of all of them. That means Cars is 21, Cars is 20, and 19 is Cars 3. And then we have the B tier films. This is where it gets a little bit tricky. The Incredibles is definitely better than A Bug's Life. Wally is, Monsters University is better than A Bug's Life. Finding Dory is better than Monsters University. Toy Story 4 is better than The Incredibles. Onward is better than The Incredibles, all of them. And then Soul is going at the top tier. So that makes Wally's 17. 23, 22, 21, 20, 19. That means Wally is 18. 17 is Bug's Life. 16 is Monsters University. 15 is Finding Dory. 14 is Toy Story 4. 13 is The Incredibles. 12 is Onward. And 11 is Soul. And then we have the A-tier films, which, of course, Monsters, Inc. is better than Toy Story 2. Ratatouille is better than Monsters, Inc. Up is better than Toy Story 2, but next to Monsters, Inc. Coco is better than Toy Story 2, but next Up. And Incredibles 2 is better than Toy Story 2 and Coco, but next to Up. And then we have so that means Toy Story 2 is 10, 9 is Coco, 8 is Incredibles 2, Up is 7, 6 is Monsters, Inc., and number 5 is Ratatouille. And then, of course, you have the 8+ tier films, where you have Finding Nemo is better than Toy Story, and Toy Story 3 is better than Toy Story. So that makes Inside Out is number 4, 3 is Toy Story, 2 is Toy Story 3, and number 1 is Finding Nemo. So that makes Finding Nemo is my favorite Pixar film, as Soul is my 11th favorite Pixar movie. So that is my ranking of all 23 Pixar movies. This has been a very long list. Well, not a long list, a long video, I believe. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys later in a little bit. Bye-bye.